First 30 to 45 seconds. What would you do if you saw a woman in an apartment window every night, reading the same book, drinking from the same blue mug, and following the exact same routine? At first, it would seem normal, but what if one night she suddenly looked directly at you and held up a message that said, "Help me, he's watching"? Now imagine discovering that the apartment she's sitting in has been empty for 10 years. No tenant, no visitors, no explanation. According to official records, the woman died in a fire a decade ago. So who is sitting in that window every night? Why can only one man see her? And what secret was she trying to reveal before it was too late? Stay with this story until the very end, because every clue leads to a shocking truth, a hidden conspiracy, and a final message that will completely change everything you think you know. Introduction. Tonight's English learning story is called The Apartment Across the Street. This is a mystery thriller filled with suspense, hidden secrets, unexpected twists, and an unforgettable ending. You'll follow Ryan Miller, a freelance designer whose ordinary life changes forever when he notices a strange woman in an apartment window across the street. At first, she seems harmless. Then she starts sending messages that nobody else can see. As Ryan investigates, he uncovers a forgotten fire, a sealed apartment, a dangerous secret, and a mystery buried for 10 long years. But the deeper he goes, the more he realizes that someone doesn't want the truth to be discovered, and they may already be watching him. So grab a cup of coffee, relax, and listen carefully, because every chapter contains clues, and the final reveal is something you'll never see coming. Let's begin. The Apartment Across the Street. Chapter 1. The Woman in the Window. Learn English through Story Level 3. Ryan Miller had always considered himself an observant person. As a freelance graphic designer, he spent most of his days working from home. His apartment was on the 7th floor of a modern building in the center of the city. The view from his large living room window stretched across a busy street lined with cafes, shops, and apartment buildings. Most people would probably ignore the world outside. Ryan did not. Whenever he needed a break from work, he would stand by the window with a cup of coffee and watch the city move around him. People rushing to work, dogs being walked, children returning from school, delivery drivers carrying packages. Every day brought new scenes, new stories, new faces. It was one of the reasons he enjoyed living there. Life was always happening outside his window, or so he thought. Because one evening, he noticed something that would change everything. It was a rainy Tuesday in October, the kind of evening that made the city look almost magical. Streetlights reflected on wet pavement, cars moved through pools of golden light, people hurried beneath umbrellas. Ryan had spent most of the day finishing a project for a client. His eyes felt tired from staring at a screen. Around 10 o'clock, he made himself a cup of tea and walked toward the window. That was when he saw her. A woman sitting beside a window in the apartment building across the street. There was nothing unusual about that. Hundreds of people lived in the surrounding buildings. People appeared in windows all the time. Yet something about her caught his attention. Maybe it was the stillness. Maybe it was the way she sat. Or maybe it was simply chance. Whatever the reason, Ryan found himself watching. The woman sat in a comfortable chair beside a lamp. A book rested in her hands. A blue mug sat on the table next to her. The warm light surrounding her made the scene look peaceful, almost like a painting. After a few moments, Ryan smiled and turned away. There was nothing strange about it. Just another person living her life. The following night, Ryan worked late again. At exactly 10:15 p.m., he happened to glance across the street. The woman was there, sitting in the same chair, reading the same book, drinking from the same blue mug. Ryan noticed it immediately. The position looked identical. Even the lamp seemed to cast light in exactly the same way. He laughed quietly. She likes routines, he said to himself. Many people did. The thought didn't seem important, at least not yet. A week passed, then another. Ryan became increasingly busy. Several new clients meant longer hours and tighter deadlines. Yet every night when he looked across the street, he saw the same thing. The woman, the chair, the book, the blue mug. Always at 10:15 p.m., always exactly the same. The routine became strangely comforting, a familiar part of his evenings, almost like a clock. One night, curiosity finally won. Ryan grabbed a pair of binoculars he occasionally used for photography. Nothing professional, just a simple pair. Standing near the window, he looked toward the apartment. The woman appeared to be in her early 30s, dark hair, thoughtful eyes, a calm expression. She wore different clothes each night, but everything else remained remarkably similar. Most surprising of all was the book. The cover never changed. Not once. How can someone read the same book every day? Ryan wondered. Perhaps it was a favourite novel. Perhaps she was studying. Or perhaps he was simply imagining things. Still, the observation stayed with him. One evening, Ryan mentioned it during a video call with his friend Marcus. Marcus laughed. Maybe she's a secret agent. Ryan rolled his eyes. Very funny. I'm serious. No, you're not. Marcus grinned. Then maybe she's writing a bestseller and pretending to read. Ryan shook his head. You've watched too many movies. Maybe, but you've definitely spent too much time staring out that window. Ryan couldn't argue with that. Still, something about the woman felt unusual. Not frightening, not suspicious, just unusual. As November arrived, temperatures dropped. Cold winds swept through the city. People wrapped themselves in scarves and heavy coats. Yet the woman's routine never changed. Every night. 10:15 p.m., book, blue mug, lamp, chair. Ryan began noticing additional details. She always turned a page at roughly the same moment, always reached for the mug at nearly the same time, always switched off the lamp around 10:45 p.m. The consistency became impossible to ignore. It was almost mechanical, like watching a recording. One Thursday evening, Ryan decided to test something. At exactly 10:15 p.m., he waved. The woman did not react. She continued reading. Several minutes later, he waved again. Nothing. He felt slightly foolish. Why would she notice someone standing in a distant window? Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then came the night everything changed. The date was November 18th. Ryan remembered it clearly because it was his birthday. He had spent the evening celebrating with friends. Nothing extravagant, just dinner at a nearby restaurant. By the time he returned home, it was nearly 10:15. Out of habit, he walked toward the window, and there she was, the woman. Exactly as expected, reading beside the lamp, holding the blue mug. Ryan smiled. Then something unexpected happened. The woman looked up, directly at him, for the first time since he had noticed her. Their eyes met. Even from across the street, Ryan felt it, a strange moment of connection. Then her expression changed. The calmness disappeared, replaced by urgency. Fear. She quickly reached beside her chair, picked up a sheet of paper and held it against the glass. Ryan frowned. At first he couldn't read the words. The distance was too great. Then he grabbed the binoculars. His heart nearly stopped. The message contained only 4 words. Help me. He's watching. Ryan stared. Certain he had misread it, he adjusted the binoculars, looked again. The words remained. Clear, undeniable. Help me. He's watching. A chill travelled through his body. The woman looked frightened, genuinely frightened. Not joking, not smiling, terrified. Ryan stepped closer to the window, trying to understand, trying to process what he was seeing. Then suddenly, the paper disappeared. The woman lowered it, pulled the curtains shut, and vanished from view. For several seconds, Ryan simply stood there, frozen. The city continued moving around him. Cars passed, lights glowed, people walked below, yet everything felt different. Because of 4 simple words. Help me. He's watching. Ryan barely slept. Questions raced through his mind. Who was watching? Why did she need help? Why had she shown the message to him? Most importantly, what should he do? The next morning, Ryan considered calling the police, then hesitated. What exactly would he say? A woman across the street held up a sign. There was no evidence, no emergency, no crime, only uncertainty. Still, the memory refused to leave him. That evening, Ryan waited by the window. 10:10 p.m. Nothing. 10:12 p.m. Nothing. 10:14 p.m. Nothing. Then, at exactly 10:15 p.m., the lamp switched on. The woman appeared. She sat in the chair, opened the book, lifted the blue mug. Everything looked normal, perfectly normal, as though the previous night had never happened. Ryan watched carefully. The woman showed no sign of distress, no hidden messages, no attempts to communicate, just reading, just sitting, just existing. The contradiction frustrated him. Had he imagined it? No, that was impossible. He knew what he saw. The message was real. The fear in her eyes was real. Something had happened. For the next several days, Ryan continued watching. The routine repeated flawlessly. Nothing changed. No messages, no signals, no clues. The woman behaved exactly as before. Meanwhile, Ryan became increasingly obsessed. He searched online for information about the building. Nothing unusual. He looked through public records. Nothing. Everything appeared ordinary. Then one afternoon, curiosity pushed him further. Ryan crossed the street. For the first time, he approached the building directly. The structure looked older than his own apartment complex. Elegant but slightly worn. A small lobby occupied the entrance. Inside sat an elderly receptionist reading a newspaper. Ryan approached politely. "Excuse me." The man looked up. "Yes?" Ryan hesitated. How could he explain this without sounding crazy? Finally, he pointed toward the upper floors. "I was wondering about apartment 407. The receptionist frowned. "Apartment 407? "Yes." The man's expression changed. Only slightly. But Ryan noticed. "Why?" Ryan searched for an excuse. "I think I know someone who might live there." For several seconds, the receptionist said nothing. Then he answered quietly, "No one lives in 407. Ryan blinked. "What? No one lives there." The receptionist folded his newspaper. "The apartment has been empty for years." Ryan laughed nervously. "That can't be right." The man looked confused. "It is right. Are you sure?" "Very sure." Ryan felt his stomach tighten. "How long has it been empty?" The receptionist considered the question, then answered, "About 10 years." Silence. Complete silence. Ryan stared, certain he had misunderstood. 10 years? Impossible. He saw someone there every night. Every single night. There must be some mistake. The receptionist shook his head. No mistake. Then he leaned forward, his voice lowered. "Why are you asking about 407? Ryan suddenly felt uncomfortable. The conversation had become strange. Very strange. "I thought I saw someone." The receptionist's expression darkened. For a moment he looked almost nervous. Then he forced a smile. "You must have the wrong apartment." Ryan thanked him and left, but his mind was spinning. No one lived there. The apartment had been empty for 10 years. Yet every night a woman appeared in the window, reading, drinking, watching. Back in his apartment, Ryan stood by the window. The building across the street looked exactly the same. Nothing unusual, nothing impossible. Yet the receptionist's words echoed in his head. No one lives there. At 10:15 p.m., the lamp turned on. The woman appeared. The routine began again. Ryan stared through the glass. Then, as if sensing his attention, the woman slowly lifted her eyes. Their gazes met once more. This time she didn't hold up a message. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. Instead, she pointed toward the window, toward the lower corner of the glass. Ryan grabbed his binoculars. A small piece of paper was taped there. It hadn't been there before. His heartbeat quickened. The words were tiny, barely visible. Yet after adjusting the focus, he managed to read them. And what he saw made his blood run cold. The note said, "He knows you saw me." Ryan lowered the binoculars. His hands trembled. Across the street, the woman stared directly at him. Then, without warning, the apartment went completely dark. And for the first time in weeks, she did not return. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The Empty Apartment. Learn English through Story Level 3. Ryan Miller stood frozen beside his window. The apartment across the street was completely dark. No lamp, no woman, no book, no blue mug, nothing. Only darkness. The note's message echoed in his mind. "He knows you saw me." His heart pounded. The words felt personal, direct, like a warning, or perhaps a plea for help. For weeks, Ryan had watched the woman follow the same routine night after night. Now, for the first time, she was gone. And somehow that felt worse. Much worse. Ryan barely slept. Every sound seemed louder than usual. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic outside, the creaking of old pipes. Normally these noises faded into the background. Tonight they felt different. Because his mind refused to stop asking questions. Who was the woman? Who was he? Why did the building receptionist react strangely when Ryan mentioned apartment 407? And how could an apartment remain empty for 10 years while someone appeared in its window every night? Nothing made sense. The following morning, Ryan tried to focus on work. His laptop sat open on the dining table. Several clients were waiting for designs. Emails needed answers. Deadlines were approaching. Yet every few minutes, he found himself staring out the window, toward apartment 407. Still dark, Still silent, still empty, at least from the outside. By lunchtime, curiosity had completely defeated productivity. Ryan grabbed his jacket. If nobody else would explain what was happening, he would investigate himself. The building across the street looked ordinary in daylight. People entered and exited constantly, residents carrying groceries, delivery workers, parents pushing strollers. Nothing unusual, nothing mysterious. Yet Ryan now saw it differently, because somewhere inside was apartment 407. The apartment that supposedly had no occupant, the apartment containing the woman, or at least it had. This time Ryan entered the lobby with a purpose. The same elderly receptionist sat behind the desk. His newspaper rested neatly beside him. When he saw Ryan approaching, his expression changed immediately. Recognition, and perhaps concern. "You again?" Ryan smiled politely. "Yes," the receptionist sighed. "I thought you might come back." Ryan pulled a chair closer. "I just have a few questions." The older man looked uncomfortable. The reaction only increased Ryan's curiosity. "Apartment 407, Ryan began. The receptionist immediately frowned. "I told you. Nobody lives there." Ryan nodded. "I know. Then why are you asking again? Because I saw someone. Because she asked for help. Because she somehow knows I'm watching." Ryan considered saying those things. Instead, he chose a simpler approach. "Has the apartment always been empty?" The receptionist hesitated. "Not always." That answer changed everything. Ryan leaned forward. "What happened?" The older man looked toward the lobby entrance, as if checking whether anyone was listening. Then he lowered his voice. "A woman lived there." Ryan's pulse quickened. "A woman?" The receptionist nodded slowly. "Years ago." "What was her name?" For several seconds the man remained silent. Then he answered, "Emily Harper." The name meant nothing to Ryan, yet somehow it felt important. A real person, a real identity, not just a mysterious figure in a window. "What happened to her?" The receptionist looked away. His eyes settled on the floor. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded sad. "There was a fire." Ryan felt a chill. "A fire?" The man nodded. 10 years ago. The words matched exactly what he had been told earlier. 10 years. The same amount of time apartment 407 had supposedly remained empty. Was she hurt? The receptionist's expression answered before his words did. She died. Silence filled the lobby. Ryan's stomach tightened. The woman in the window. The woman holding messages. The woman asking for help. According to official records, she had been dead for 10 years. "Are you sure?" The question sounded ridiculous the moment it left his mouth. Of course, the receptionist was sure. Yet Ryan needed confirmation, needed certainty, needed something solid. The older man nodded. "I attended her memorial service." Memorial service. The phrase struck Ryan like a physical blow, because dead people didn't sit beside windows reading books. Dead people didn't hold signs. Dead people didn't send messages. Or did they? Ryan immediately rejected the thought. No, there had to be another explanation, a rational explanation. There always was. The receptionist seemed eager to end the conversation. "That's all I know." Ryan stood slowly. "Thank you." The older man nodded. Yet, as Ryan turned to leave, the receptionist spoke again. "Be careful." Ryan stopped. "What?" The older man's face looked pale, uneasy. Some things are better left alone. The warning lingered in Ryan's mind long after he left the building. That evening, he searched online for information about Emily Harper. At first, he found very little. A few old social media profiles, several outdated public records, nothing useful. Then, buried among search results, he found a newspaper archive dated 10 years earlier. The headline immediately caught his attention. "Local woman dies in apartment fire." Ryan clicked. The article included a photograph. His heart nearly stopped. It was her, the woman from the window, the same face, the same eyes, the same person. According to the article, Emily Harper was 32 years old. She worked as a journalist. She lived alone in apartment 407, and she died during a late-night fire that destroyed part of the building. Authorities ruled the incident accidental. Case closed. End of story. Except it wasn't, because Ryan had seen her, again and again, night after night. As he continued reading, another detail stood out. The fire started at exactly 10:15 p.m. Ryan froze. 10:15 p.m. The same time the woman appeared every night. The same time her lamp switched on. The same time the routine began. A coincidence? Perhaps. But Ryan no longer believed in coincidences. That night, he waited by the window. 10:10 p.m. Nothing. 12 p.m. Nothing. 10:14 p.m. Still nothing. Then, at exactly 10:15 p.m., the lamp appeared. Ryan nearly dropped his coffee. The light glowed softly inside apartment 47, exactly as before. Moments later, the woman appeared. Emily Harper, dead for 10 years, yet somehow sitting calmly beside the window, reading, drinking from the blue mug, repeating the same routine. Ryan immediately grabbed his phone. He needed proof, photographic proof, something concrete, something undeniable. He zoomed in and took several pictures, then several more. When he examined them, confusion replaced excitement. The apartment window appeared empty, completely empty. No woman, no chair, no lamp, nothing. Ryan frowned. He looked up. The woman remained visible, clear as day. Then he looked back at the photographs. Empty, every single one. A cold sensation travelled through his body. For the next hour, Ryan tested everything. Different camera settings, different angles, different devices. The result never changed. His eyes saw the woman. The camera did not. By midnight, frustration overwhelmed him. He needed another perspective, another witness. Someone who could confirm he wasn't imagining things. The next evening, he invited Marcus over. At first, Marcus seemed amused. Then Ryan explained everything. The woman, the messages, the empty apartment, the fire, the photographs, the warning. Marcus listened carefully. Eventually, his smile disappeared. For the first time, he seemed concerned. "You really believe this?" Ryan nodded. "I know what I saw." Marcus looked toward the building. "Then let's see her." Together they waited. Silence. The lamp appeared. The woman sat beside the window, exactly as always. Ryan pointed immediately there. Marcus stared, confused. Then confused became worried. "What? I don't see anyone." The words hit harder than Ryan expected. "What do you mean?" Marcus pointed toward apartment 407. "The room is empty." Ryan's heart pounded. "No." Marcus nodded slowly. "I see a lamp." Ryan froze. "A lamp?" "Yes," Marcus squinted. "Maybe a chair." Ryan's mouth went dry, but not a person. For several seconds, neither spoke. The realization felt impossible. Marcus could see parts of the room, but not the woman. Then something happened. Something that changed everything. The woman slowly turned toward Ryan. Not Marcus. Ryan, only Ryan. And she smiled. Not happily, sadly, almost desperately. Then she raised a finger, pointing. Not toward the street. Not toward Marcus. Toward something inside the apartment. Ryan followed her gesture. Near the far wall stood a bookshelf, old, dusty, ordinary, except for one thing. A small red object rested on the middle shelf, something he had never noticed before. The woman continued pointing, insistently, urgently, as if trying to tell him something. "What is she doing?" Marcus asked. Ryan ignored the question, because he understood, not completely, but enough. The woman wanted him to find something connected to the bookshelf, something hidden inside apartment 407. Then the lights flickered, once, twice, 3 times, and suddenly the woman disappeared. Gone, just like that. The room stood empty, silent, dark. Marcus looked confused. What happened? Ryan stared at the window, his pulse racing, his thoughts spinning. For the first time, the mystery had given him a clear direction, a clue, a destination. Apartment 407, the bookshelf, the red object. Somewhere inside that supposedly empty apartment, a secret was waiting, and Ryan knew exactly what he had to do next. He had to get inside. As he continued staring at the dark window, a final thought entered his mind. A terrifying thought. If Emily Harper was trying this hard to communicate, then whatever she wanted him to find must be important, very important. And if someone else knew about it, they might already be watching. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, Messages Through the Glass. Learn English through Story Level 3. Ryan Miller did not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the woman in apartment 407. Emily Harper, the journalist who had supposedly died 10 years ago. The woman only he seemed able to see. The woman who had spent weeks repeating the same routine before finally giving him a clue. A bookshelf. A red object, a silent request for help. And now, Ryan knew one thing with certainty. Whatever mystery Emily was trying to reveal was hidden inside apartment 407. The question was how to get inside. At 7 o'clock the next morning, Ryan stood by his kitchen window with a cup of coffee. The city was already awake. Cars filled the streets, pedestrians hurried along sidewalks, life continued normally. Yet Ryan felt as though he had stepped into a different world, a world where nothing made sense anymore. He opened his laptop and searched for every piece of information he could find about Emily Harper. This time he looked deeper, not just articles about the fire, everything. Old interviews, archived newspaper reports, public records, social media posts, anything. Hours passed. Most results revealed nothing unusual. Emily had worked as a local investigative journalist. She had written stories about city politics, business scandals, and public corruption. She seemed respected, dedicated, fearless. Then Ryan found an article published just 2 weeks before her death. The headline immediately caught his attention. Journalist claims to have evidence of major corruption. Ryan sat forward. His pulse quickened. The article described an ongoing investigation Emily had been conducting. According to the report, she planned to publish evidence exposing several powerful individuals connected to illegal activities. The article never explained what those activities were, only that Emily claimed to possess proof. Proof, evidence, secrets. The words felt important, very important. Ryan continued reading. Near the end of the article, one sentence stood out. Emily Harper stated she would reveal her findings within the month. She never did, because less than 2 weeks later, the fire happened. Ryan stared at the screen. The timing felt suspicious, too suspicious. A journalist discovers evidence, promises to expose corruption, dies before publishing her findings. The case is ruled an accident, the story disappears, and 10 years later, mysterious messages begin appearing in an apartment window. It sounded like something from a novel, yet it was happening. That afternoon, Ryan returned to the building across the street. This time, he wasn't looking for the receptionist. He wanted information, anything useful. The lobby was quiet. Only a young maintenance worker stood near the elevators. He appeared to be repairing a light fixture. Ryan approached casually. "Excuse me." The worker looked up. "Yeah?" Ryan pointed toward the upper floors. "How long have you worked here?" The man shrugged. "About 5 years." Ryan nodded. "Ever heard of apartment 407? The reaction was immediate. The worker stopped moving, just for a moment, but Ryan noticed. "Why?" Ryan smiled. "Just curious." The man looked uncomfortable. "People talk about it sometimes." Ryan's heart skipped. "What do they say?" The worker lowered his voice. "Some residents think it's haunted." Ryan almost laughed. "Almost. And you?" The worker glanced toward the elevator, then toward the ceiling as though checking for listeners. "I've seen weird things." Ryan's pulse quickened. "What kind of things?" The man hesitated, then answered, "Lights turning on by themselves." Ryan listened carefully. "Sounds from inside." "What kind of sounds?" "Footsteps." A chill moved through Ryan. "Anything else?" The maintenance worker nodded. "Sometimes people report seeing someone standing near the window." Ryan froze. "A woman." The worker stared. "How did you know that?" For a moment, neither spoke. Ryan quickly changed the subject. After a few more questions, he thanked the worker and left. But one thing was now clear. He wasn't the only person who had noticed strange things about apartment 407. That evening, Ryan sat by the window once again. The city slowly darkened. Lights appeared in hundreds of apartments. Families ate dinner. Televisions flickered. Life continued. Then the clock reached 10:15 p.m. The familiar lamp switched on, and Emily appeared. Ryan's heart immediately accelerated. Every time he saw her, the experience felt impossible, yet there she was, as real as anyone else. Tonight felt different, however, because Emily wasn't reading. The book remained closed. Instead, she looked directly at him, waiting. Slowly, she lifted a piece of paper. Ryan grabbed his binoculars. The message contained 3 words. "Look closer tonight." Ryan read the words twice, then a third time. "Look closer tonight." Closer to what? The apartment? The window? The bookshelf? Before he could decide, Emily lowered the paper, then pointed toward the glass itself. The window. Ryan adjusted his binoculars, examining every corner carefully. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then he noticed it. A faint reflection, almost invisible. Something appeared behind Emily. A shadow. Ryan frowned. The shape stood near the back of the room, motionless, watching. His stomach tightened. The message from before flashed through his mind. He's watching. The shadow remained perfectly still, too dark to identify, too far away to see clearly, yet unmistakably human. Ryan's hands trembled slightly. Someone else was inside the apartment, or at least something. Emily slowly turned toward the shadow. Her expression changed immediately. Fear. The same fear Ryan had seen weeks earlier. Then the lamp flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. The shadow disappeared. So did Emily. The room became empty. Ryan lowered the binoculars. His heart pounded so loudly he could hear it. The mystery had just become far more dangerous. The next morning, Ryan made a decision. He was going into apartment 407. Officially, legally, if possible. After some research, he discovered the building management company operated from an office a few blocks away. By noon, he sat across from a property manager named Karen Whitmore. Apartment 407? Karen looked surprised. Nobody's asked about that unit in years. Ryan nodded. I was considering renting it. The lie came easily. Karen smiled politely. I'm afraid that's impossible. Why? It's sealed. Ryan blinked. Sealed? Karen nodded. After the fire. The answer raised even more questions. 10 years later? Karen hesitated. It's complicated. Ryan leaned forward. Can I see it? The property manager's expression hardened immediately. No, the response was too fast, too firm, too rehearsed. Why would an empty apartment remain sealed for 10 years? Why refuse access? Why avoid discussing it? The questions multiplied. That evening, Ryan returned home frustrated, yet something unexpected awaited him. A package, small, plain, unmarked. It sat outside his apartment door. Ryan picked it up carefully. No sender information, no return address, nothing. Inside was a single item, a photograph. His breath caught. The image showed Emily Harper, standing beside apartment 407's window, smiling, alive. The photograph appeared old, perhaps more than 10 years old. But what truly shocked Ryan was the message written on the back. The answers are behind the bookshelf. Ryan stared. His pulse raced. Who sent this? How did they know what he was investigating? How did they know about the bookshelf? Only 2 possibilities existed. Someone was helping him, or someone was watching him. Neither possibility felt comforting. That night, Ryan sat in darkness beside the window, waiting, watching. 10:15 p.m. arrived. The lamp illuminated the room. Emily appeared. This time she looked different, more urgent, more desperate. She immediately held up another message. Don't trust the man in black. Ryan frowned. The man in black? Who was that? Before he could think further, movement caught his attention. Across the street, near the entrance of the building, a man stood on the sidewalk, dressed entirely in black. Ryan's blood ran cold. The stranger wasn't looking at the building. He wasn't looking at traffic. He wasn't looking at his phone. He was looking directly at Ryan's apartment. Watching. The same word echoed through Ryan's mind. Watching. Slowly, the man lifted his head. Their eyes met. Even from that distance, Ryan felt it. A deliberate stare, a warning. Then the stranger smiled, a cold smile. The kind that carried no warmth, no friendliness, no kindness. Only certainty, as if he already knew exactly what Ryan was doing, as if he had been expecting this moment. Ryan instinctively stepped back from the window. His pulse thundered. When he looked outside again, the man was gone, vanished. The street appeared completely normal. Cars, pedestrians, streetlights, nothing unusual. Yet Ryan knew what he had seen. The man existed, the warning existed, the photograph existed, and someone clearly wanted him involved in this mystery. The question was why? Across the street, Emily remained by the window, looking directly at him. Slowly, she raised one final note. The words sent a chill through his entire body. He knows about the bookshelf. The lamp immediately went dark. The room became empty, and Ryan found himself staring at his own reflection in the glass. For the first time since the mystery began, fear outweighed curiosity. Because if someone else knew about the bookshelf, then someone else knew about whatever was hidden behind it. And if Emily had died trying to protect that secret, Ryan might already be in danger. Still, deep down he knew one thing. He couldn't stop now, not after everything he had learned, not after the messages, not after the warnings, not after seeing the fear in Emily's eyes. The truth was waiting behind that bookshelf, and somehow Ryan was getting closer, closer than anyone had in 10 years. But he wasn't the only one searching anymore. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The Night That Never Ended. Learn English through Story Level 3, Ryan Miller sat alone in his apartment long after midnight. The city outside remained alive with distant traffic and glowing lights, but his attention never left apartment 407. The dark window stared back at him, silent, empty, waiting. On the table beside him lay the photograph that had appeared outside his door. The message on the back seemed heavier now than when he first read it. The answers are behind the bookshelf, and Emily's latest warning echoed through his mind. Don't trust the man in black. He knows about the bookshelf. Who was the man? Why was he watching? And what could be hidden behind a bookshelf that was important enough to keep secret for 10 years? Ryan knew one thing. He could not wait any longer. If he wanted answers, he needed to enter apartment 407. The following morning, he returned to the building. This time, he wasn't interested in official permission. The property manager had already refused. The receptionist had been nervous. The maintenance worker knew only rumours. Every path seemed blocked. Every answer led to another question. Ryan stood across the street studying the building. The structure had 2 emergency staircases, one on each side. A delivery entrance sat near the rear alley. Residents entered and exited throughout the day. Security cameras covered most public areas, but not all of them. After nearly 2 hours of observation, Ryan noticed something useful. A side door near the service entrance occasionally failed to close completely. Maintenance workers used it frequently. Each time it opened, the lock remained unsecured for several minutes. Ryan's pulse quickened. It wasn't much, but it was an opportunity. That evening, just before sunset, he made his move. The alley behind the building was quiet. A delivery truck had recently departed. The service door stood slightly open, exactly as he hoped. Ryan took a deep breath, then stepped inside. The hallway beyond was dimly lit. Concrete walls, exposed pipes, storage rooms, nothing unusual, yet every footstep felt louder than normal. Every sound seemed amplified. He followed signs toward the main staircase. Within minutes, he reached the 4th floor. Apartment 407 stood at the end of a quiet corridor. Ryan stopped. His heart pounded. For weeks, the apartment had existed only as a distant image behind glass. Now he stood directly in front of it. The door looked ordinary. Faded brown paint, old metal handle, apartment number attached above the frame. Nothing suggested mystery, nothing suggested danger, nothing suggested 10 years of unanswered questions. Then he noticed the lock. A thick metal seal remained attached to the door. The property manager had told the truth. The apartment was officially closed. Ryan stared at it, frustrated. He had come all this way only to encounter another obstacle. Then he heard footsteps. Someone was approaching. Instantly, Ryan moved away from the door and pretended to check his phone. Moments later, an elderly resident walked past him. The woman smiled politely and continued down the hallway. Ryan exhaled slowly. Too close. He needed another plan. As he turned to leave, something caught his attention. A small maintenance panel near the end of the corridor. The cover stood slightly open. Curious, Ryan approached. Inside ran electrical wiring and utility connections. Nothing remarkable, at least initially. Then he noticed a narrow passage behind the wall, not large enough for normal use, but large enough to access maintenance areas connecting multiple apartments, including apartment 407. His pulse accelerated. 10 minutes later, after squeezing through an uncomfortable section of service space, Ryan reached a ventilation opening. Beyond it lay apartment 407. For the first time, he saw the room from inside. Dust covered nearly every surface. Furniture remained exactly where it had been left. The chair, the lamp, the table. Everything. The same room he had watched for weeks, except now it was empty, completely empty. No Emily, no movement, no signs of life. Ryan carefully entered through an unlocked maintenance access panel. The moment his feet touched the apartment floor, a strange feeling settled over him. Silence. Not ordinary silence, a deeper kind. The kind found in places abandoned for years, places holding memories, places waiting. The air smelled faintly of smoke, even after 10 years. Ryan moved slowly through the room. Every object seemed frozen in time. Books remained on shelves, photographs rested on tables, a calendar still hung on the wall. Its date remained unchanged. October 14th, 10 years earlier. The day of the fire. A chill ran through him. Then his eyes found the bookshelf. The same bookshelf Emily had pointed toward repeatedly. Ryan approached carefully. The shelf contained dozens of books. Most appeared untouched, covered in dust, forgotten. He examined each one. Nothing. Then he noticed something unusual. One book lacked dust. Unlike the others, it appeared cleaner, recently moved, or frequently touched. Ryan pulled it. Nothing happened. Then he tried again, harder. A soft click echoed through the room. Ryan froze. Slowly the bookshelf shifted. His heart nearly stopped. A hidden compartment emerged behind it. Inside rested a small metal box. The box looked old, protected, important. Ryan lifted it carefully. A lock secured the lid, but age had weakened the mechanism. After several attempts, it opened. Inside lay documents, photographs, newspaper clippings, audio recordings, and a journal. Emily's journal. Ryan immediately opened it. The first page contained a handwritten message. "If you found this, I failed." The words hit hard. He continued reading. Over the next hour, Ryan discovered the truth Emily had spent years investigating. She had uncovered evidence linking several influential city officials to illegal property deals. Buildings had been deliberately declared unsafe. Residents had been forced to leave. Properties were purchased at extremely low prices, then sold for enormous profits. Millions of dollars had changed hands. Bribes, fraud, corruption. Emily documented everything. Names, dates, transactions. Evidence. Enough evidence to destroy careers. Enough evidence to send people to prison. Ryan finally understood why someone might want her silenced. Then he reached the final journal entry. The last thing Emily ever wrote. His hands trembled as he read. October 14, someone followed me today. I think they know what I found. If anything happens, the evidence must survive. People deserve the truth, no matter what happens to me tonight. The entry ended there. No farewell, no explanation, no final words, only fear and determination. Ryan closed the journal slowly. His chest felt tight. Then a sound interrupted the silence. A floorboard creaked, somewhere inside the apartment. Ryan froze. He wasn't alone. The realization struck instantly. Someone else was there. Another sound followed. Closer this time. A footstep. Ryan's pulse exploded. Slowly he turned. The apartment remained empty, at least visually. Yet the feeling persisted. Someone was watching. Then he noticed movement near the hallway. A shadow. The same shadow he had seen through the window, standing motionless, watching. Ryan stepped backward. The figure remained still. Too dark to identify, too distant to recognize, yet unmistakably human. Then something impossible happened. The room changed. Not physically, not exactly. Suddenly the apartment looked different, brighter, newer, alive. The dust vanished, the furniture appeared clean, the lamp glowed warmly. Ryan blinked, confused, and there, sitting beside the window, was Emily Harper, alive, reading her book, holding her blue mug, exactly as she appeared every night. His breath caught. The scene felt real, painfully real. Then Emily looked up, directly at him. For a moment neither moved. Then she smiled sadly. Not the smile of a ghost, not the smile of an illusion, the smile of someone carrying a burden. Slowly she stood, walked toward him, and pointed toward the journal in his hands. Ryan looked down. A folded page protruded from the back cover, something he had not noticed before. He opened it carefully. Inside was one final note, a note that changed everything. The fire was not the beginning, it was the cover-up. Ryan's blood ran cold. The fire wasn't an accident. Someone had destroyed the apartment intentionally, destroyed evidence, destroyed records, destroyed Emily, or at least tried to. Then he noticed another line beneath the message. Trust no one connected to building development group. The words felt important, very important. Ryan folded the note. When he looked up again, Emily was gone. So was the brighter version of the apartment. Everything returned to normal. Dust, silence, darkness. The moment ended. But the message remained. And suddenly another realization struck him. The property manager. Karen Whitmore. Ryan remembered something from their meeting, a framed certificate hanging behind her desk. The company logo. Building Development Group. His stomach dropped. Karen wasn't merely managing the building. She worked for the very organization Emily had warned him about. Which meant one thing. The people involved in the original corruption might still be protecting the secret, even after 10 years. Even now. A sudden noise echoed from the hallway outside. Voices. Approaching. Ryan quickly gathered the journal and documents. Whoever was coming couldn't find them. Especially now. Because he finally understood something terrifying. Emily's story wasn't over. The people responsible might still be out there. Still watching. Still hiding the truth. And now they knew someone had entered apartment 407. Someone had found the evidence. Someone had reopened a mystery that was supposed to remain buried forever. As Ryan slipped out through the maintenance passage, one thought repeated endlessly in his mind. The night of the fire had never truly ended. Its secrets had simply been waiting. Waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them. And now, the most dangerous chapter of the story was about to begin. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, The Final Message. Learn English through Story Level 3, Ryan Miller ran all the way back to his apartment. The journal was tucked securely beneath his jacket. His heart pounded with every step, not from exhaustion, from fear. For the first time since the mystery began, he possessed something real, something dangerous, evidence, proof. The truth Emily Harper had died trying to protect. And if Emily's warnings were correct, other people wanted that truth buried forever. The moment Ryan entered his apartment, he locked the door. Then he locked it again. He pulled the curtains closed and switched off the lights. Only the glow from his desk lamp illuminated the room. The city outside continued normally. Cars moved through the streets. People walked beneath streetlights. Life went on. Yet Ryan felt as though he was standing in the center of a storm. The journal rested on the table. Alongside it were photographs, documents, and recordings from the hidden compartment. Ryan took a deep breath, then began examining everything carefully. For hours he organized the evidence, property records, financial transactions, meeting notes, names, dates, signatures. The deeper he looked, the clearer the picture became. Emily had been right. A network of influential people had manipulated city development projects for years. Apartment buildings were declared unsafe. Residents were pressured into leaving. Properties were purchased cheaply through hidden companies, then resold for enormous profits. Millions of dollars disappeared into private accounts. One name appeared repeatedly. Victor Langford. Ryan frowned. The name sounded familiar. Very familiar. After a moment, he remembered why. Victor Langford was now one of the most powerful real estate developers in the city. His company owned dozens of buildings, including several managed by Building Development Group. The same organization Emily had warned him about. Ryan continued reading. Every document connected back to Langford, every transaction, every suspicious deal, every hidden payment. Then he found something even more shocking. A photograph. The image showed Emily standing outside a government building. She wasn't alone. Several officials stood nearby, including Victor Langford. On the back of the photograph, Emily had written a short note. "He knows I know." Ryan felt cold, very cold. Suddenly a sound interrupted the silence. Knock, knock, knock. Ryan froze. Someone was at his door. The knocking continued, slow, steady, deliberate. Ryan approached cautiously. Without opening the door, he looked through the peephole. No one. The hallway appeared empty. His pulse quickened. Another knock echoed, this time louder. Ryan opened the door quickly. Nothing. The corridor remained deserted. Then he noticed an envelope lying on the floor, freshly delivered. His stomach tightened. Slowly, he picked it up. No address, no sender, just his name written across the front. Ryan. He carried it inside, opened it carefully. A single sheet of paper rested inside. The message contained only one sentence. Stop looking before someone gets hurt. Ryan stared. His hands trembled slightly. The threat felt real, because whoever sent it clearly knew what he was doing. Someone was watching. The same conclusion he had reached many times before, only now it felt personal, very personal. Ryan looked toward apartment 407. The dark window remained silent, yet somehow he felt Emily's presence. Not physically, not visibly, but as a reminder. She had continued searching despite the danger, despite the threats, despite knowing what might happen. Ryan folded the warning and placed it beside the journal. He wasn't stopping. The next morning, he contacted a journalist named Sarah Bennett. Sarah worked for one of the city's largest newspapers. More importantly, she had a reputation for exposing corruption. They met at a small cafe across town. Ryan arrived carrying copies of the evidence. Not originals, only copies. Experience had taught him caution. Sarah listened quietly as he explained everything. The apartment, the journal, the hidden compartment, the corruption scheme, the threats. At first she looked skeptical. Then she began reading the documents. Her expression changed immediately. "Where did you get this?" Ryan hesitated. "That's complicated." Sarah continued reviewing the papers. Several minutes passed. Then she looked up. "These are real." Ryan nodded. "I know." Sarah leaned back in her chair. "If this evidence is authentic, it could destroy careers." Ryan glanced around the cafe, suddenly aware of every stranger nearby. "Can you publish it?" Sarah's answer came without hesitation. Yes. For the first time in weeks, Ryan felt hope. Real hope. Yet something still bothered him. The messages, the warnings, the appearances in apartment 407. One mystery remained unsolved. Why had Emily continued appearing at the window? What was the final message she wanted him to understand? That night, Ryan returned to his apartment. He stood beside the window shortly before 10:15 p.m. The city glowed beneath the darkness. Streetlights reflected on wet pavement. Traffic moved steadily. Everything looked ordinary. Then the clock reached 10:15 p.m. The lamp appeared. Ryan immediately felt a surge of emotion, because he knew this might be the last time. Emily sat beside the window, reading her book, holding the blue mug, exactly as she always had. For several moments, she simply looked at him. Then she smiled, not sadly, not fearfully, peacefully. Slowly, she lifted one final piece of paper. Ryan grabbed his binoculars. The message contained 6 words. "Thank you for finishing the story." Ryan's throat tightened. For weeks he had chased answers, searched for clues, followed impossible messages. Now at last he understood. Emily never wanted someone to save her. She couldn't be saved. The fire had happened 10 years earlier. The past could not change. What she wanted was the truth. Someone to finish what she started. Someone willing to uncover the evidence. Someone willing to ensure her work survived. Ryan felt emotion rise in his chest. Unexpected, powerful. Across the street, Emily lowered the message. Then she did something she had never done before. She stood, walked toward the window, and placed her hand against the glass. A silent goodbye. Ryan slowly raised his own hand. For one brief moment, the distance between them seemed to disappear. Then the room brightened. The lamp glowed stronger than ever before, warm, golden, peaceful. And suddenly Ryan saw something remarkable. The apartment was no longer empty. People stood behind Emily, dozens of them. Families, residents, neighbors, men, women, children. People whose lives had been affected by the corruption she uncovered. People whose stories she had protected. People who had lost homes, lost opportunities, lost security. They weren't ghosts. They weren't visions. They were memories. A reminder of why Emily fought so hard. Why the truth mattered. Why the story needed to be told. Emily smiled once more. Then the light faded. The figures disappeared. The room became dark. And for the first time since Ryan noticed the apartment, the lamp did not return. The window remained empty. Silent. Still. Ryan stood there for a long time. Minutes, perhaps longer. Because he knew something had changed. The message was complete. The story was finished. 3 days later, Sarah's article was published. The response was immediate. Headlines spread across the city. Investigations reopened. Officials faced questioning. Financial records were examined. Witnesses came forward. Most importantly, Emily Harper's evidence finally reached the public, exactly as she had intended. Victor Langford denied every accusation, at first, but evidence continued emerging. More documents, more witnesses, more proof. Within weeks, formal investigations began. Several officials resigned, although the others faced criminal charges. The truth could no longer be hidden. Months passed. Life slowly returned to normal. Ryan resumed working. Deadlines returned, clients returned, ordinary routines returned. Yet some things had changed forever. One afternoon, he received a letter from the newspaper. Inside was a commemorative edition honoring investigative journalists. The cover featured Emily Harper. Beneath her photograph appeared a simple sentence. "The truth survives when someone is brave enough to protect it." Ryan smiled. Later that evening, he stood by his window. The city stretched before him, bright, alive, endless. Across the street stood apartment 407. The apartment remained empty. No lamp, no woman, no blue mug, no messages, only silence. Yet it no longer felt sad. It felt peaceful, because the mystery had finally ended. Emily Harper's story was no longer hidden behind dusty walls and forgotten memories. The truth had survived. And sometimes Ryan still imagined he could see a faint reflection in the glass, a woman holding a book, smiling quietly, watching the city she had fought to protect. Not trapped, not lost. Free. Ryan smiled back, then turned away from the window. For the first time in a very long while, he wasn't searching for answers, because he had already found them. And somewhere beyond the darkness, beyond the memories, beyond the secrets, one final message seemed to remain. Not written on paper, not displayed through glass, simply understood. Some stories refuse to disappear, because the truth always finds a way home. The end.